Hey everybody, how's it going? In this Python video, we are going to learn how to perform slicing on our lists and our strings. So if you don't know what slicing is, it's a way for us to extract certain elements from these lists and strings. So for example here, I have this my list here that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I have a comment underneath here that has all of the positive indexes. So the index of 0 is equal to the value of 0. So down here where I'm printing out my list, now this is probably a refresher for a lot of people, but if we type in the index here, then it's going to give us the value at that index. So if I run that, then you can see we get the value 0. So if I was to type in the fifth index here, then it should be the value 5. Now what less people know about is that you can actually use negative indexes also, and I have those listed in this comment as well. So the -1 index refers to the last value in the list, which is 9. So if I was to type in my list and got the -1 index and printed that out, you can see that we get the result 9 here. And if I was to go to the -10 index and print that out, then you can see that we get the value 0. Okay, so that's how we access single values in our list, but how do we extract a certain number or a range from this list? Well, the way that we can do that is using this syntax that I have in this comment here. So we can do a start value and an end value separated by a colon. And then there's also this step value, and we'll take a look at that here in a little bit. So for example, let's say that I wanted to get the values from the index of 0 all the way to the index of 5. So I want 0 through 5 here. Now the way that I'm going to do that is I'm going to type in my start index. So I'm going to start at 0 and then put in my colon. Now I'm going to put in my end index. Now the thing about the end is that it is non-inclusive. So if I was to put a 5 here and print this out, you can see that we get 0 through 4 because it gets to this fifth index and then it stops. It doesn't include that. So if I wanted to include that 5, then I would actually go put my end as the sixth index and then print that out. Now you can see that I get 0 through 5. So just as another example here, what if we wanted to get the values 3 through 7? We wanted these values here. So we could start at the index of 3 and we could go until the end index of 8, because remember, this is not inclusive. So if I print that out, then you can see that we got 3 through 7. Now we can also mix and match these positive and negative indexes. So if I wanted 3 through 7, I could also do -7, which you can see here is the 3, and then I could go to -2, which you can see is the 8, and if I print that out, then it's the exact same thing. And I said you could mix and match these positive and negative. So if I wanted to go 1 through 7, then I could do a positive index of 1, which is the value 1 here, and go to -2, which is the 8, which it will only print to the 7. So if I save that and print it out, then you can see that we got 1 through 7. Now what if we wanted to print from 1 all the way to the end of the list here? Now remember, the end is non-inclusive, so if I put a 9 in here, that's not going to work, because if I go 1 and then end at 9, it doesn't include the 9 value and it only prints out till the 8. So really we can leave off values. So if I left this 9 off and just left this colon in, then it's going to assume that I want to go to the very end. So if I just do a 1 colon, then it'll print from the index of 1, which is the value 1, all the way to the end of the list. So if I print that out, now you can see that I get 1 through 9. So if I made this a 5 colon and then left this empty, printed that out, then I get 5 through 9. Now this also works with the beginning index here for the start index. So if I leave that out and I typed in a -1 here, then it'll go from 0 to 8. And you can even leave both of these out and run it, and you just get a copy of the entire list. So far we've only touched on this start and end index here. We haven't really touched on this step at all. Well, the step allows us to skip a certain number of values. So for example here, if I wanted to start at the number 2, at the value 2, then I can start at index 2. And let's say I want to go to 8. So I'll type in -1 here because then it'll include the 8. Now, if I print that out, then we get 2 through 8. Now, the step will allow us to skip a certain number of values. So if I do a step of 2 here, then it'll print out every second value. So if I run that, then you can see that it printed out 2, 4, 6, 8. So what it did here is it started at index 2, which is this value of 2 here, and it's going to -1, which is the 9, but non-inclusive, so it's going to go to the 8. And then it's going to print out every second value. So it prints out the 2, skips a value, prints out the 4, skips a value, 6, and so on. Now the default step is just to print out every value. It's a 1. So if I run that, then it's the same as not even specifying the step at all. Now the step is interesting because you can actually do a negative step also, which will run in reverse. Now if I was just to make this a -1 right now and printed this out, you can see that it is an empty array because what it's trying to do, it's trying to print out 2 through 8, but it has this negative step, so there's just no way that it can get there like that. But if I print out from -1 to 2 and I reverse those values and then print that out, now you can see that it started at the index of -1 and it's going to the index of 2, which is 2, and the step is -1. So it's going from 9 down to 3. And remember, the end index is non-inclusive even when you're going in reverse. So now it's going from 9 to 3. So if I wanted to print from 8 to 2 in reverse, what I would have to do is I'd have to start at -2, which is the 8, and I'd have to go to the index of 1, which is this one here, and then a -1 step. So if I run that, and you can see that we have -8 down to 2. Now we can make this a -2, which will go in reverse in every other value. So now we have 8, 6, 4, 2. And now lastly, if we just wanted the entire list reversed, then we can leave off the start so that it'll go completely to the beginning. We can leave off the end so it'll go completely to the end. And we can just negative step this by -1. So if I run that, now you can see that we have the entire list in reverse. And that's basically all there is to slicing lists in Python. So you can play around with this and try different values and see what you get. Now you can also slice strings. So let's take a look at a couple of examples here where we can try to slice certain values out of a string. So I have a sample URL here, and I'm just going to print this URL out to the screen. So now I have a couple of comments here. So first of all, let's see if we can reverse the URL. So to reverse the URL, then we did this the same thing with the list. We can just leave the start and end completely empty, and then we can step by -1, which will go in reverse. So now if I print this out, you can see that we print out the sample URL up here, and the reverse of that is here. So now let's see if we can get just the top level domain from this URL. So the top level domain here is this .com. So how would we slice that value out of that string? Well, I think the easiest way here would be to start from a negative value. So I can start at -1, 2, 3, 4. So if I type in -4, and then I'm just going to go to the end of the string from -4. So if I print that out, then you can see that we got .com. Now, even though we're starting at -4, our step is still a +1 by default. So we're starting here, and we're just going to the end of the URL, which is the .com. Okay, so now let's say, for example, that we want to print the URL without the beginning HTTP. So to do this, we can start at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So if we start at index 7 and then just go to the end of the string, then it should give us the URL without the HTTP and the slashes. So if I print that out, now you can see that we just have the URL without the beginning HTTP and the slashes. And now as a final example here, let's print the URL without the HTTP or the top level domain. And this kind of is just a combination of the two that we just did. So we can start at index 7 and we can go till index -4, and that it will be non-inclusive. So if we print that out, you can see that it doesn't include that dot. So now we only have the URL and it doesn't have the .com or the HTTP at the beginning. So that about does it for this video. I hope after looking at all of these different examples, you're now comfortable with all the different ways that you can perform slicing in Python. But if you do have any questions, feel free to ask in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe for future Python videos, and thank you all for watching.